Good evening, everybody. It's now 6:16 according to my clock on the computer here. We are scheduled for a Committee of Adjustment meeting to hear a minor variance at this time. And I would take a mover and a seconder to open the meeting. Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Vaillancourt. All in favor? Carried. We need to, the recording secretary's flagging me, yes?
Sorry, who moved and who seconded?
Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Vaillancourt. And then we need a motion to appoint a recording secretary, that being Andre Gagne. I'd take a mover and a seconder for that. Mover is Councillor Foisy. Seconder is Councillor Vaillancourt. That Andre Gagne be appointed recording clerk for this meeting. All in favor? Carried. This is a minor variance application, and it's file A1 2020. It's Remy and Janine Foisy of 200 Church Street. The purpose of the variance is to allow for an interior side yard setback of 4 feet instead of the required 13.12 feet as per the zoning bylaw 2012-49 in a residential first density zone at 200 Church Street in the hamlet of Bonfield on part of Lot 10, Concession 7. Our purpose this evening is to hear any comments for or against this minor variance. And I understand there's ability through our telephone audio, and it has ability to make comment at this point in time for listeners as well.
I do have someone on the phone. I'm not sure if they want to comment or they're just listening, so I will wait and see if we hear from them.
Okay, thank you. Has there been any comments submitted in writing for this meeting?
I don't see anything.
Okay,
I have a question.
yes.
So the setback, is that from the house or the roof or?
It's the side yard. Interior side yard setback, it says, of 4 feet.
So what does that mean?
One side or the other, I guess the property line is only 4 feet away instead of 13 feet. I don't know which side.
From the wall of the house or from the roof where the roof ends or? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I would expect it's the most extending part of the building, if whether it's the roof eave or the wall, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture. It looks like it's the owner of lot 204 has not given any comments or.
Quite some time ago, there was I believe, an email submitted in relation to this application that the neighbors had been consulted and had no objection, but that's not official documentation that I'm aware of for the purpose of this meeting.
Yeah, I was just wondering if Doug, I don't have any paperwork. Maybe I didn't get it, or I might have had it, but if he had any issues with it at all from the planning committee, is recommended.
The file you have, Andre, does it have any indications in it at all from his department?
No, this does not go to planning. It goes directly to Committee of Adjustment. There's only one comment that came from Remy and Janine Foisy saying that they had no objections. Mattawa Conservation didn't seem to have any issues either. And that's all I have regarding this application.
I believe it went through its normal circulation process, just like a severance would, that people were notified and had the ability to
Twice.
comment.
Okay.
But it's because it's a zoning bylaw instead of a severance, it's directly to council instead of through planning committee. Yes, Councillor Lagasse.
Thank you. I did contact Doug yesterday regarding this matter, and he had no concerns and didn't have any concerns from the public at the time, and also conservation did. They have no concerns either, so I'm good with this application.
It's not something that I believe we make decision on tonight, even in this meeting. The purpose of the meeting is just to hear comment one way or the other. It, I believe, comes up later in the agenda of the council meeting, does it not? No? Okay. So is there a prepared motion, Andre, for the Committee of Adjustment on this one?
Yes, there is. The motion reads that minor variance file A1 2020, Remy and Janine Foisy, be approved subject to the Committee of Adjustments decision attached here too. And all members of council are requested to sign the decision attached to it.
I see. Okay. So the Committee of Adjustment decision, as that motion reads, we're basically covering both steps in this single movement here, if we do it within this meeting, I think, in that if we move and second that motion, we're operating as Committee of Adjustment at the moment. So we are a committee, we're not members of council, so that motion that you just read likely needs to come forward in the council meeting under planning, or under the best category is planning, but we're not council at this point of this meeting, I don't believe. We're a Committee of Adjustment. So it would need to be added. If I recall doing these, and we do so few of them, that we just hear comment for or against, and then we adjourn, and then council makes the decision in a council meeting of approving the minor variance or not. That's how I understand it anyway, or I thought it worked that way. Yes, Councillor Lagasse.
Would we be able to do an amendment to the council agenda?
Well, I think it could be introduced under planning subtitle there for a motion to be introduced then.
Okay.
if you'd like to do so. I'm going to call one more time for any comments for or against minor variance 1, 2020. Hearing none, I would accept a motion, a mover and a seconder to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment. Moved by Councillor Legacy, seconded by Councillor Viancore. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we're in the moment here in between our next meeting that starts at 6:30 related to financial statements. So I'll return in a moment.
Andre,
Yes?
I left you a message in chat.
Are we good, Andre? Are we good, Andre?
Yes, we are.
Yep, okay. Good evening, Dean. Welcome.
Good evening, Peter.
How was the drive, how was the virtual drive down from North Bay?
Members of council. I'm actually in Toronto, believe it or not, right now.
Oh, okay. Good to have you here anyway.
It's good to be here.
Yep.
So good evening again. We are moving now into a meeting of council, but it's a public meeting related to the financial statements for the year 2019. And our guest this evening is Dean DeCare of BDO, our auditing firm, and he will lead us through the financial statements for 2019.
Okay.
I have to officially go through the process of opening my meeting. So I would take a mover and a seconder to open the meeting. Moved by Councillor Foisey and seconded by Councillor Legacy. All in favor? Carried. We need to appoint a recording secretary for this meeting. I need a mover and a seconder to appoint Andre Gagne as recording clerk for this meeting. Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Foisey. All in favor? Carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Hearing none. Presentation of 2019 financial statements as described. Mr. Decaire is with us and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, members of council, for having me here tonight. My preference would be to be there in person, obviously, but these are unprecedented times. Hopefully, as we get into 2021, we can open it up a little bit and start to have live meetings. I'm going to walk you through, I've got a few comments to make overall right now, and then I'm going to walk you through the draft audited financial statements, and you can ask me any questions, and I'll walk you through the executive summary of my audit findings report. And then I'll answer all questions from your worship, the mayor, as well as members of council. So here's my introductory comments. Under the Municipal Act in Ontario, it's reminding you that every municipality in the province of Ontario that's incorporated in the province of Ontario must appoint an external auditor. That external auditor must be licensed by the Public Accounting Licensing Board, and which is done on an annual basis. The Township of Bonfield has engaged the firm of BDO Canada LLP, of which I am a senior partner now in that firm, going on my 27th year. The audit report, one of the things that you need under the Municipal Act is you need a clean, unqualified auditor's report, which I have drafted up for you for your year end at December 31st, 2019. The reason that I'm here on December 8th, 2020, everyone, is as a result of a couple different things. One, the impact of COVID-19 had a significant impact on the auditing profession and as well as and my firm and slowed us back about 3 months. We will not have that issue heading into 2021. So regardless of what happens with this pandemic, we must have a goal, everyone, to get in, conduct the external audit, which is done partially remotely using digital platforms and partially in person using all the protocols that are in place by the province of Ontario around social distancing. And I fully expect that audit to be done and me to get in front of this council before the end of April 2021. So this is, when I walk you through the numbers, it's going to be, you have to take your minds back 11 months to talk about fiscal 2019. I just want to remind you of that. I want to remind you of the fact that the audit, myself and the 3 people that actually were used to conduct the audit testing on your books and records, everyone, were all independent of management and council of the great township of Bonfield. We could not have any relationships that would impair our independence, that would cause us to have any kind of conflicts. We did not provide any significant non-audit services to the township of Bonfield other than opining an opinion on your financial statements. We used a materiality level that when I walk you through, so just to put it in context, of $80,000. Where do we get that from? We take 2% of your budget. Your budget, everyone, is roughly $4 million a year in operating revenues and expenses. And I'll talk to you about that as I walk you through the financial statements. And materiality guides the number of tests that we do as part of the external audit program, and that's dictated by the Canadian Assurance Standards Board. We did fraud and illegal act testing as part of the audit. That's one of the things that we have to proactively do. It's no longer a reactive thing, it's proactive, where we look at general journal entries, we look at expense reports, we look at payroll, we look at transactions with CFOs and CAOs and things like that to make sure that they are all authorized and legitimate transactions. And there was nothing for me to report to you tonight in that regard that was irregular. A management letter will come to Peter Johnson and his group within 30 days of this meeting tonight. Then we'll talk about any little housekeeping items. We did record 12 adjustments at the end of the year when we came out to do the audit. And all of those adjustments were not uncommon with other municipalities. I do every year I do about 20 to 22 municipality audits. And most of the entries are around tangible capital assets, accounting for reserves, accounting for long-term debt, transfers, that type of thing. So we're not, I'd have a little bit more concern if we were coming in correcting bookkeeping items and the bank didn't reconcile and my GICs are out, and my accounts payable didn't balance, and things like that, which was not the case, which is good. I'm going to make some recommendations around the accounting position. I've had some communications with Peter about making sure that we try to recruit and obtain a full-time accounting person at the Township of Bonfield for hopefully in early 2021, moving this corporation forward, making sure that a balanced general ledger is maintained and forwarded to members of council to make decisions, and the budget's updated, and all those things that Peter, Jim, and others have been doing over the past 5 years in particular. I'll talk a little bit about COVID-19 at the very end, around some of the uncertainties in the province of Ontario around municipalities and how COVID-19 has impacted not just how you deliver municipal services to your ratepayers and your residents that pay property taxes and live in your great township, but also, what I'm seeing out there in the marketplace in terms of, what are the senior levels of government doing? What's the federal government and provincial government doing? What types of things are they what types of initiatives or programs or grants are out there to continue to help our taxpayers as people that, may or may not have lost jobs, as businesses that, may or may not be open to the public as a result of COVID-19, and as well, what about municipalities where, again, there can be some cash flow challenges depending on the extent that you rely on user fees, people paying their property taxes on time, that type of thing. In order to finish the audit, there's two things we need to do. We need to look at your January to November financial results of 2020. Why is that, Dean? Well, it's December 8th, 2020, and I'm responsible for the audit to go right up to December 8th. So there will be one of the CPAs, one of the audit members of the audit staff has done some subsequent event testing already based on inquiry of your CAO and staff, as well as looking at some of the minutes of this council in 2020, but there's still some follow-up that needs to be done. There's also some follow-up that needs to be done around litigation. One of the things that we do is we look for lawyer bills and that type of thing. First we ask management, any litigation, any statements of claim against the corporation. And after that, we write letters to lawyers, any law firms that you've used during the year, to make sure that they're not aware of anything that management may not have told us about. That review is not done. My understanding is that there's at least one statement of claim that is outstanding that took place in 2020, which is in the audit period, and my audit staff are still looking at the impact of that statement of claim, if any, on the financial statements. But typically, there would be a note to the financial statement saying the corporation has been subject to a statement of claim by a third party in the amount of blah. The outcome of that is either known, in which case we have to make an accounting entry, or unknown at this time. Okay, so that again continues to be looked at right now. In terms of the financial statements, you're going to be quite pleased as members of council. And you know me, I've come before you now the past, goodness sakes, at least the past 10 years. And I always give you my honest advice as your municipal auditor under the Act. You have a very healthy cash balance at the end of the year, $1.8 million. You spend a little over $300,000 a month to keep the township safe, secure, roads, maintained, all those types of things. So you got about 6 months worth of operating expenses in the bank at the end of the year. Again, healthy. One of the things that you did in 2019 is you did go out and get a couple new loans from IO, or what is called Infrastructure Ontario. Infrastructure Ontario is a political financing authority that does provide very cost-effective financing to municipalities at very decent terms. They're fast, good rates of interest, that type of thing. So it's for capital projects. And over the past 2 years, the Township of Bonfield has invested $800,000 in infrastructure. That includes vehicles, buildings, roads, water, that type of thing, any municipal assets that have been acquired. And you borrowed about $545,000 in 2019 and two brand new IO loans, which contributed to money in your bank. You continue to have good reserves, everyone, which is a positive. You have reserves of around $1.2 million, or about 4 months worth of expenses. And lots of mayors over the years have asked me, and members of council, Dean, what's that magical number that I need in municipal reserves in my bank account? And I like it to be somewhere between 3 and 6 months. I don't like it higher than 6 months, but I certainly don't recommend that those reserve balances don't go below 3 months worth of expenses. So for you guys, that'd be about 900,000. And right now you're sitting at $1.2 million. You're going to see that you had a surplus this year when I walk you through the financial statements, and an annual surplus, meaning your revenues exceeded your expenses. But there's a couple of things that I'll caution you about. You're going to see that the surplus was about $264,000, I believe. Yeah, $270,000, pardon me, an accounting surplus, which is great. But about 300, all of that is made up of a one-time efficiency grant that the province of Ontario gave us that we haven't spent a lot of money on. And I think it was around, if I'm not mistaken, around $311,000 or $317,000. So that money came in from the Ford government in, I'm going to say, April of 2019, thereabouts, with the intent that the municipality, that all townships, not just Bonfield, but all townships across the province, would you take advantage of that money and say, okay, what can we do with that $300,000 to become more innovative, to become more transparent to our taxpayers, ratepayers, to become maybe a more, to look at the way we're organized and structured and that type of thing. And clearly that was the mandate. There's no real strings attached to that money. And indeed that is or will be sitting in your reserves as we head into 2021. But that was the biggest reason why you had the surplus in 2019. I think at this point, what I'll do is I'll walk you through the actual financial statements themselves. Yours probably don't have all my chicken scratch on them, but the first 2 pages, page 2 and 3, have my audit report. It's very important for all of you on council to recognize the fact that under the law, you must have an audit. So you must open up your books to someone like me to come in and check them. And we've done that. You must produce a financial statement in accordance with public sector accounting standards. You've done that. You should, it's highly recommended that you get a clean, unqualified auditor's report. And that's what I've drafted up for you tonight, dated December 8th. There are still 3 things outstanding. I hope that all those 3 things get cleared up that I talked about. One being any statements of claim against the Township of Bonfield. One being the subsequent event review up to today, or up to the end of November, probably is the closest date we're going to get. And then finally, this, members of this council passing a resolution to approve the financial statements. Starting on page 4, I've walked you through the highlights on page 4. So if you said, Dean, where did we land at the end of December 2019? How did we look heading into 2020? Now that we're 11 months and 8 days into 2020? Well, the beginning of the year, you had, like I said, a decent sized bank account of $1.8 million. Your taxes receivable, everyone, thumbs up, okay? At the end of 2019, you were in a very good position. You only had about, 1 month and 12 days worth of property taxes outstanding, which is probably the best that I've seen in the group of municipalities that I do external audits on. So fabulous. Now that was 2019. Again, 2020 might be a different story depending on the impact of COVID-19 and some of the uncertainty around that. And the province has one of the things the province has done is it has extended the timing of when townships and municipalities need to forward their the education portion of their property taxes to the 4 school boards. So in that particular case, we may see at the end of 2020 a larger balance in taxes receivable at the end of the year. But I was quite happy to see the number at the end of 2019. Your accounts receivable were normal. Your GICs are all your $500,000 investments are all in GICs. Okay, there's no risky investments taken by the Township of Bonfield. Your accounts payable look great, $229,000. I always expect you guys to be somewhere around between $250,000 and $280,000 in accounts payable. That's because you spend about $310,000 a month. Your deferred revenue, well, this is a big opportunity here, and Peter and I have talked about it. And when you're in receipt of gas tax money under the gas tax programs, you have to spend that money within, I thought it was 3 years, but Peter corrected me that it's 5 years now under the new gas tax, under the new AMO agreements, or the Association of Municipalities of Ontario agreements you guys sign. So there's $500,000 that can be put towards transportation and infrastructure initiatives in 2021. And I strongly suggest that you look at how those monies are spent. Long-term debt went up. So I like to see municipalities that are paying down their long-term debt. In your case, it went up because we borrowed on some of the capital expenditures that we've done over the past few years. Instead of using gas tax money, we went and used Infrastructure Ontario money. It's probably a bit high, 2.1 million, based on tangible capital assets of $8.1 million. And that's something that I would encourage the mayor and council to look at through your CAO, obviously, over the next couple of years, is to get that back down again. I would like to see your long-term debt based on the size of your infrastructure, everyone. I'd rather see your long-term debt more of around $1.6 million. The landfill closure liability, that's a liability that you must legally save up for. You will close and you will care for that landfill in a number of years from now. So you'll see it'll go up every year. So it went from 174,000 to 183,000. That goes up by inflation, or what I call accretion. So every year it goes up, 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 and up. When do we actually see that come down as a liability? Well, when we actually close the landfill. When we close it, it's going to cost a couple $100,000. And then we have to care for it for a period of 20 to 30 years after that. And it'll cost minor dollars at that point annually. Your tangible capital assets didn't change an awful lot. You'll see they went from 8 million to 8.1 million. Well, but you said, Dean, I invested 800,000 in my community. Well, that's true. But every year you're having to take depreciation of about $400,000, or what's called amortization expense. So that's you depreciating older assets that have been bought over the last 50 years by the Township of Bonfield. So the net increase was around $182,000. You had a little more gravel at the end of the year, this year in 2019 than you did the year before, which is sitting in inventory. If you go to page 5, everyone with me, your statement of operations, you're going to see that your property taxes went up by about 2%. They went up 5% in real dollars, or in real percentages, everyone. But when you back out NPAC adjustments and things like that, I think the actual property tax increase was less than 2% in 2019 over 2018. You're going to see government transfer payments. That revenue was up over budget by about 300,000. And what is that, everyone? Well, that's the efficiency grant, which was around $371,000. So that money is sitting in the bank, in the coffers, in your reserves to be spent. And I'd like to challenge this mayor and council to spend that money in the next couple of years on something to do with innovation, the way we've organized ourselves. Maybe see, what needs are there. You could do an internal look-see by asking staff what they need in order to provide municipal services to the taxpayers more effectively. And you could also ask the taxpayers as well as to what they think the Township of Bonfield can be doing. And you could do a study, as an example. Again, it's not my role to tell you what to do, but that's certainly, just know as members of council that certainly is in the, you've got that money in reserves and it has a specific purpose. And the purpose was to make you more efficient, because with the Ford government, they were not secretive. They were saying, the OMF is going to shrink even more. The OMF being your municipal partnership allocation every year. In terms of expenses, you did a great job again, and I don't mind, I don't mind giving recommendations. You all know me by now, but I also don't mind complimenting you. You held your expenses to actually a negative increase year over year. So, where you were at 3,956,000, you were down to 3,900,000 in 2019 in terms of spending. You'll see you budgeted for an accounting surplus of almost 200. And the past 2 years, that's exactly what you've done. So from an operating standpoint, again, I would suggest you stay the course. You're a $4 million township. I would suggest that you make sure that you invest in transportation initiatives with your gas tax money over the next couple of years. And I would suggest that you use that innovative efficiency grant to look at, how do we better ourselves as a township? The rest of it, if I draw your attention just to page 8, members of council. So page 8 and 9 and 10 walk you through your accounting policies that you must follow. There's no choice. As a local government and a municipality in the province of Ontario, you must adhere to public sector accounting standards, and you do. None of those accounting principles in terms of how you measure expenses and revenues and assets and liabilities, none of those have changed from 2018 to 2019. And all of them do 100% conform with public sector accounting standards. In the notes to the financial statements, you'll see a note on what makes up your accounts receivable. And the biggest item is HST. So at the end of the year, you'll see you had $64,000 in HST owing back to you, because as you all know, being a municipality, you're entitled to somewhere around 80% of your HST that you pay on services and supplies back, and you apply for that public service body rebate. It's called 2 times a year. If you go to note 7, it talks about the fact that you have an operating line of credit available to you, everyone, in the amount of $1 million at TD, I believe, and you had used none of that at the end of the year, and we made sure we confirm that. You'll see in note 9 on page 16, you'll see the two new IO loans, IO being Infrastructure Ontario, that added up to somewhere around $550,000 roughly. You will see on page 18, note 7, if you're wondering, okay, Dean, I want to remember afterwards, how much gas tax did we have unspent? And again, Peter provides you with those reports as your CAO, but you'll see $557,000. Okay, that's not all gas tax. There's some minor amounts that are not gas tax, but for the most part, it is. 95% of that balance is gas tax that needs to be spent over the next 2 years. If we go to page 20, this is something that I know you guys always ask me about, is our reserve funds. So the Township of Bonfield, what's important? What's critical to us moving forward? Do we need something new with regards to fire or protection? Do we have a one-time cost with respect to OPP? Do we have any costs regarding waste management or water? Roads, expected increases that are just not manageable within our property tax base. Those are things that municipalities set aside reserves for. It's that unknown. You can see that you have a number of different things in reserves that this council has set aside money for. And it's all in the bank account, which is great. But the largest chunk of your reserves is in what's called a working fund reserve. And everyone, that's just a tax stabilization reserve. That's all that is for accounting purposes, meaning there's nothing specific to it. It's just $998,000 that's there in case our costs are going to go up in 2020 or 21 or 22. I'll give you a good example of a year where costs could go up is with regards to COVID. We either may have seen in 2020 increased costs or decreased revenues, and we could have used our working capital reserve to offset that, as opposed to going back to the property taxpayer saying we need to increase your taxes. I don't think there was anything else in the financial statements that I wanted to walk you through. In my report to you all, which you all have, just let me see here. I know I had it open. There's a good executive summary, and it's a report to members of council dated December 8th, 2020. And in that report, everyone, there's a couple of different things, but there's an executive summary that walks you through and says, okay, here's the status of the audit, that type of thing. And there's also a really good schedule at the back of different things that you would ask the auditor every year with regards to, did you have any disagreements with management? Did we change our accounting principles to, that maybe make our financial statements look a little inconsistent, that type of thing. And again, the answer to that is no. I've made it very clear as to what's still outstanding, and I will make sure that those outstanding items are fully rectified to my satisfaction before signing off on these financial statements. But with the exception of that, I'm going to open it up either through the mayor or directly to me to some discussion, please. And I'll go on mute while you ask your questions about either my audit report, okay, or the draft audited financial statements, or any of the comments that I've made. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Decaire related to the 2019 financial statements? Councillor Viancore has a question.
All right, thanks. Just a quick question on how much would you suggest out of our working capital reserve, let's say to cover some cost, a specific, like, I mean, just a rough number, because we don't know the cost yet, maybe for COVID.
Mhm. So very good question. So what I've been suggesting to all municipalities and a lot of non-for-profits as well is to try to capture the cost in a separate general ledger account. And that's everything from on an expense side, Councillor Vinecourt, it's easy to know, okay, well, did we have to buy any personal protection equipment? Did we have to put up some, at the Township of Bonfield head office, did we have to put up some dividers, some plexiglass, some of the things that I had to do in my office? You should be able to track that. Over and above that, there's going to be some costs where there's going to be some lost revenue. That the township, it could be in some municipalities they've lost. Think about it: transportation revenue for those municipalities that run buses, arena revenue for those that have municipally owned arenas to people that are coming out, whether it's hockey, skating, whatever the case may be. So what I challenge you to do, Councillor Vinecourt, is get a report from the CAO as to what our expected for 2020 COVID-19 revenue losses are, including having to write off any bad debts and property taxes from ratepayers that just, they had a restaurant, hypothetically, they ran a restaurant, couldn't survive because they couldn't keep the doors open because we were in a green zone, or how the province uses color zones. We've been very fortunate and blessed, touch wood, that for the most part, we have not been locked down as a result of this pandemic. But I would get the CAO to give a report as to what their projected lost revenue and direct expenses were as a result of COVID-19, and I would apply some of that working funds to it in 2020. And we're going to actually expect to look for that, Mark, when we do the 2020 audit.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Dean.
CAO has comment related to that to you, Mr. Decker. Go ahead.
Councilor Vinecourt, that's a good question. And Dean, I think you and I and Josh talked about this the other day. We have $136,000 for COVID expenses in a separate account. We have received another $100,000 for COVID. So we have money to cover COVID expenses without having to dip into that fund that Councilor Vinecourt has mentioned. In terms of lost revenue, I had a meeting this afternoon about our end of October internal statement, and I'll be sending that out to council tomorrow. I wanted to wait for tonight. And the lost revenues for 2020 to date were primarily to do with the fact that we didn't pass a levy until a few weeks ago. And so I looked at those statements. I talked to the consultant who's temporarily doing those for us. And when we factor in the fact that I was checking with Andre this morning, our interim tax bill, which is due on the 18th of October, 18th of December. Is that correct, Andre? 18th? Yeah. We've collected about $1 million. We have 700,000 still to collect. So I'd mentioned this at meetings earlier this year when we sent out our interim tax bill. I'm so proud of our residents because our collection rate has been magnificent. And when I talk to our regional CAOs every month at a regular meeting, a lot of them are having real problems with lost revenue because of tax bills. We're not having that at the moment. So we're in good shape. We've got that. And the money, Dean, that you mentioned, keeping track of COVID-related expenses, we've done that because I have to file a report at the end of this year to the province. I certainly will do that with council. But our COVID-related expenses are basically PPEs, which we've provided from time to time for our fire department and first responders, public works, newsletters, those sorts of issues. So we've probably spent less than $10,000 on those to date. But that money is there. We don't know going into, we don't know what the rest of this year is going to be. We've only got 3 weeks left, but we don't know what the first 6 months of 2021 is going to look like. So we're in good shape with the COVID expense grant that we received of 136,000, of which we spent less than 10. We've got $100,000 for an additional COVID expense fund, which we haven't touched at the moment, plus the working capital reserve that you mentioned. So we're in good shape. And I will be providing that report that I'm required to do to the province. I will be providing that report to council before the end of the year.
Yeah, the other thing, thank you, Peter. The other thing, Councillor Vaillancourt, to keep in mind is other than the direct expenses where you had to write a check or if you lost revenue, and Peter's done a good job explaining that in 2020, and chances are your lost income, if you want to say, is less than your actual provincial subsidy, which is great. But what COVID's taught us, a great example is tonight. How are we meeting? We used to meet in your boardroom at the town office. Okay, now we're meeting like this. And this better be a secure portal system. This better be a secure Zoom system. So one of the things that it taught me was that the investment in technology, the ability for us to meet as a council by way of Zoom meeting or team meeting, etc., with the best software, the best security protocol, because we have to make sure that we protect the integrity of these meetings. We have to make sure that we protect the integrity of our taxpayers and their personal information, etc. So don't be shy to throw some of that in there and say, okay, COVID-19, well, I had to ramp up our IT investment because we're meeting virtually. And think about all your staff that worked from home. Well, maybe you gave them a stipend for working from home, maybe, whatever the case may be. So it's not just the direct expenses, it's all the indirect stuff that came along with COVID as well. And like I said, I keep harping on this efficiency money the province gave you. This gives you a good chance to say, do we have the best technology in place right now in the township of Bonfield that benefits our ratepayers? A great website that's interactive, allows them to know what's going on in the community. A great system for capturing accounting information and taxation information. A great site for people to go in and make comments to council, a council's corner as an example. I've come up with all kinds of fun things that I think that municipalities need to do to differentiate themselves. Why do we want to attract people to our community? Randy's great for getting out there and, let's get businesses in this community. We're a great community, etc., which is fabulous. Let's make sure we have all the infrastructure in place. Let's do a little, let's do a review of our IT systems, our org chart, how we're structured. Council, if you guys are having great council meetings and they're leading to productive decisions in the best interest of all the taxpayers, great. If not, then what can we do differently as it relates to COVID-19 and how we're meeting, etc. So this really is although it's a very frustrating time for people that are trying to get together, especially for the holidays and social distancing and stuff like that. It's also a great opportunity for townships to come out and really show how innovative they could be. So anyway, I didn't mean to go on a rant, Councillor Vaillancourt. You know how I am, right? And but
Thanks.
thank you. That was a great question.
Great answers. Thanks.
Other questions, Mr. Mayor?
I see the CAO hand up for a second there.
Well, I just want to reassure council and again, good question from Councillor Vaillancourt. I mentioned this in our meeting with Dean and Josh last Thursday. We have a lot of ideas, my colleagues, to bring to council once we have an opportunity next year to do that, about using monies to digitize and improve our IT service to our ratepayers. There's a program going on right now in Nipissing to improve broadband coverage that's going to be the recipient of a lot of money from the federal government to do that. In terms of the Zoom platform, I'm in contact with Zoom almost every month about updates to their security system, and so we're currently up to date on that. Andre and I have had a number of discussions this past week with our insurance company and with our IT provider in North Bay about making sure that we are protected for cybersecurity, to make sure that all our data and all our systems are looked after, and we're going to take steps to do that. So all that's being looked after right now, and as I said, that will be a report that I'll make to council early in the new year. But all the things that you mentioned and that Councillor Vaillancourt has mentioned, we're already doing.
So are there any other, and again, your CEO can continue to update you, Mr. Mayor and Council, about all the initiatives the Township of Bonfield's doing, which is great. Any questions about the audit itself for 2019, or concerns about, you know, the timing of it, or heading into 2020? Like, I'm happy answering any questions. I want you to be
Councillor-
comfortable. If
Councillor Lagasse has a question.
if I came to a meeting without a question from Councillor Lagasse, I would be very disappointed. Okay, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Dean. Chair, I do have a question regarding the landfill site reserves. Are we on target with that, or do we need to up our step for the closure of the landfill site?
That was a question for me?
Yes, Dean.
Councillor Lagasse, yeah. So, I mean, certainly, have you booked the liability equal to the present value of what we expect it to cost? Yes, you have. And it's in the books right now at, I think, 183,000.
That's right.
So you have measured it appropriately for the landfill site. Your question was, have we reserved it properly? And again, this is where I get a little frustrated with municipalities, that they go and set up reserve funds and blah, 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 blah. Well, reserve funds are meant for things that are unknown. They're not meant, or things that are known are going to happen in the future, but they're not liabilities. The landfill is a liability, and it's $183,000 liability in 2019 dollars. You know what I mean? The year 2019 dollars. And you have booked that, which is perfect. There's no need for a municipal reserve for it, anything like that. That liability is booked. It's different from, oh, I got to get a new fire truck 5 years from now. I'm going to put into a reserve. Oh, there's a municipal election 2 years from now. I want to put into reserve. Those are different. Those are things, there's no liability for those things because nothing's happened yet. The landfill's a little different. You know what happens every year? You use it. You're adding stuff to it. And as you do that, then the utilization of that landfill as it ages goes up. And that's why that liability goes up. So it is funded because you already have a liability for it. It's what's called, you know, in the, if you go look at your reserve note, it's in the long-term debt section of liabilities to be funded with future property tax dollars, but it has been booked at an accurate amount at the end of 2019. Very good question.
I'm going to issue a last call for questions for the financial statements for 2019, just in the interests of time. Also, I heard in your commentary earlier that you would appreciate a motion of this council accepting the financial statements for 2019. Is that something you require?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that would be perfect. Yep.
Okay. I would take a mover and a seconder to accept the 2019 financial statements as presented. Moved by Councillor Lagasse. Seconded by Councillor Weinborg. That the 2019 financial statements be accepted as presented. All in favor? Carried. Last call for questions related to these financial statements.
Thank
you, Mr. DeCare, for your presentation.
Okay. Thank you. And you know, everyone, as a council, mayor and council, I'm accountable to you. So if you ever want to invite me to a meeting during the year, please do. If for any of my comments, recommendations, whatever the case may be. But otherwise, my goal is to see you again by the end of April for 2020's results. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Take a mover and a seconder to adjourn.
Yep.
Moved by Councillor Lagasse and seconded by Councillor Foisey. That this meeting adjourn at 7:10 p.m. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everyone.
Get those management letters to you in the morning.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Dean, I miss seeing the maple leaf hat.
Yeah.
I guess it's the wrong time of year. Maybe next time we'll see it.
I hope we get to see it in April in person, everyone, please. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care.
Good night.
Okay, if everybody wants to take a minute and 15-second break, we can still make our opening time under our procedural bylaw. for our regular meeting of council coming up in a minute and a half.
Okay, I put the bark collar on the dog.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
yeah, I raised my hand before Dean left. I just want to mention that we have a resolution that could have been looked at during the last meeting, but we'll do it this one. And that's to do with something that BDO and I talked about last Thursday, and that's the transfer of that efficiency money, which is currently in a general reserve. And you and council last February passed a motion and a bylaw to transfer that money into a efficiency reserve before the end of 2020. So we have a resolution prepared to do that before the end of the meeting tonight.
okay. Remind me of that before we adjourn then.
Yep.
So in the interests of meeting the requirements of our procedural bylaw, it's now 7:13 PM and it would appear that all members are back in position from our short break. So I would take a mover and a seconder that this meeting be opened at 7:14 PM. Moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Vinecore, that this meeting be opened at 7:14 PM. All in favor? Carried. The next motion is that we need to appoint a recording clerk for this meeting as well, and that would be Andre Gagne. So I'd take a mover for that. Moved by Councillor Vinecore. Seconded by Councillor Lagacé. That Andre Gagne be appointed as the recording clerk for the purposes of this meeting. All in favor? Carried. Okay, any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the, oh, sorry, I skipped over the minutes. Our minutes are from November 10th, 2020. I'd take a mover and a seconder for those. Moved by Councillor Lagacé, seconded by Councillor Foisey, that the minutes of the regular meeting held November 10th, 2020 be adopted as circulated. Any questions or concerns with the minutes? All in favor? Carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Hearing none, there's no presentations or delegations for this meeting. Minutes and reports of municipal committees and boards, planning advisory. As we had discussed earlier, there was the Committee of Adjustment meeting related to file 1 of the Committee of Adjustment. And
That's right. And we haven't had any meetings this month, nor do I know of any applications that came to the planning for next month.
okay, and our recording clerk had previously read that motion from the Committee of Adjustment meeting. If you would do so again, and then I'll call for a mover and seconder for that.
That minor variance file A1 2020, Ramey and Janine Foisey be approved, subject to the Committee of Adjustments decision attached here too.
Okay. Is there a mover for that article? Moved by Councillor Legacy. Seconded by Councillor Vaillancourt. Any discussion or concerns related to that Committee of Adjustment motion? All in favor? Carried. Fire Department? There's nothing else from planning then? Okay. Fire Department?
I don't think there was a meeting at all.
Okay.
Not that I know.
Recreation and Fitness is the same, I believe.
Nope, no meeting.
Okay. Library, there was some minutes in our package. I think they had a virtual meeting. General Government has no motions, nor does Police Services. Emergency Management meets weekly related to the state of local emergency, and the minutes are circulated to council of any activities that are there. One thing that's come up regularly, and we did receive an $8,200 grant some time ago, is related to an application we put in for COVID kits. And we've had regular discussion, and I'll take the procrastination blame for the fact that these COVID kits haven't been launched and delivered in a manner yet, but discussion arose on Monday morning about who would receive such a kit. And we had a couple of links provided from the Director of Planning related to Amazon actually has pre-prepared COVID type kits that can be ordered. There's two versions that we were sent links describing, and they have masks, gloves, sanitizer, and a few other articles in them. And then we also have some supplies on hand that could be included in those kits. With the funding we have and the cost of those Amazon type kits, or if they're sourced somewhere else, that's fine too. We're looking at probably between 150 and 200 kits that we could create. And then how we distribute them, discussion was held to that, and the patrons of the food bank would be probably the most appropriate recipients with certainty. And then the Lions Club is soon to deliver their Christmas basket program under the telethon thing. And the COVID kits could be distributed along with them as well, in partnership with the Lions Club, if we so chose to do that. I guess the reason I raised that tonight is there anybody that has any input or suggestion related to the COVID kits? Because the grantor that sent us the $8,200 for the kits is seeking reply of how we've dispersed that money, and as of yet we haven't. So we're going to have to move fairly soon to distribute some product for that grant that we received. And I would take any suggestions that you have at this point in time. Yes, Councillor Legacy.
Thank you, and I agree. I've been waiting a long time to disperse these kits to whoever needs them. So I thank staff, and I thank the emergency committee.
The notion of a Amazon type product, does that seem okay, or okay? I see
Yes.
Councillor Foisey has comment on it as well.
Maybe a gift certificate and a list of suggested items you can buy with it. And you had mentioned first come, first serve.
Well,
Make sure it's well publicized that it is available, where to get it, and first come, first serve.
we don't have certainty of, we know the food bank has between 15 and 20 regular patrons. And the Lions Club, we don't have a firm number of how many baskets they're putting out this year. But we know there's probably between 50 and 100 of extra kits with the funds we have available that we could distribute somehow, some way on an as needed basis. I've said in the emergency meeting, we want to portray this as it isn't a free gift from the township. It's for people who are truly in need and could, use this product and its contents in their battle against COVID-19. It's not something that we just hand out.
Was it a seniors?
Well, it's pretty wide open it's for persons in need is how it was
When I
described.
first started, before we got the funding, we had missed a funding of 2 days. And so I started collecting in-kind things like masks that were made from certain people. And I was trying to put a kit together. Since then, this funding came through of $8,200 and it was godsend. So all we had to do was put these kits together, and at the time it was for the seniors. And since then I've realized that there are a lot of people that could use that, and it's not just the seniors. So if we can use the funds before time runs out, then it would be great. And I agree that Councillor Fwizzy did mention a gift certificate that was the original plan. But if we could do something, either Amazon or the gift certificates.
Because by now, everybody should have masks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Reservation on the gift certificates is in the past. We've internally had some gift cards that didn't work for various reasons.
Yeah.
There was some problems with them. And the other thing, the gift cards don't always work is the one drawback. And is it a grocery type gift card or a gasoline type card, or there's all kinds of avenues that it could have went. So we know ourselves last year, they were pretty open-ended. They were Visa type cards that could be expended on anything, and some of them just didn't work. So that was part of the movement earlier on, and it would seem a simple suggestion. What we're trying to get around is having to send staff out shopping in the middle of a pandemic and keep it as simple as possible for whatever recipient gets it to use for whatever particular need they have. So, okay, we'll take that back. We'll explore. Okay, the CAO has comment, and Councillor Viantor as well.
I'm not advocating one way or the other, Your Worship. I like Councillor Foy's suggestion. The issue of the Amazon links, Andre and I were talking about that today. And again, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but if we were to go with the Amazon links, it would be too late to get to participate in the Lions Club gift basket. Is that correct, Andre? No?
We would have about a week and a half to get everything together. So if we were to place the order tomorrow, we would be good on that.
All right. So it would have to be tomorrow. You're right. Okay. So.
And as I recall, just off the top of my head, one of these choices was about $29 to $30, and the other one was slightly less than that. Is that what
That's correct? Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So like the particular kit from Amazon is about $30 option, a little bit more comprehensive than the cheaper version of it, I think. And then we have some hand sanitizers and different things in-house that we could distribute along with it, I think.
And you'll give 20 kits to the food bank and 40 kits to the Lions and the rest first
And then-
come, first served,
And
something
then
like
the
that.
rest, we figure out a mechanism to distribute it without having a bunch of floor traffic coming to the door, that's all. So we'll approach that once we get them in hand and see how well it works.
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
wondering about the cost. So you said about $30, okay. I was
I
just
mean,
wondering what their average, cost.
Just looking at the Amazon kit, for the $30, I mean, it's nothing fancy. It's a mask, it's some masks, it's some gloves, it's some sanitizer, the general thing that most of us already have. But we're operating in our mindset of, we're not in need, or I'm not in need, where spending on gloves, masks, and sanitizer is not a financial burden to me. To some people at Christmas time, it may well be. So that could be a welcome thing that they don't have to think about. And as the second wave has come along, probably our timing is good right now. So we just need to get moving on it. That's all. So that's why I raised it, and we'll work towards that unless anybody's opposed to going in that direction with it then.
it's all good.
Okay. Public Works, the Public Works manager's here, so I'm not going to comment on Public Works types things, but if you have anything to bring up at this point, go ahead.
I would like to bring up that Boxing Day is on a Saturday this year. And I would like to ask council how they feel about the landfill being open or closed on Boxing Day.
So I guess the question is, the staff would be on double time at the landfill site, but that's the only consideration really, other than they don't have their time off. Christmas Day being a Friday then, I guess.
I've already spoke to the staff. The staff is willing to work on Boxing Day. So really it would be a question of council would like to see that happen or not for their residents.
Well, I'm not opposed if they want to work, I don't see an issue. That's my view on it.
Okay, it seems to be a general head nodding consensus that Saturday, the 26th is going to be an open landfill site, even though it's Boxing Day. Because if not, we would be approaching, if we took that same approach, it would be the day after New Year's that we'd be next open. So, okay, so the direction then is go ahead and proceed with being open December 26th. All right, thank you. So we're going to move out of the committee reports. Reports of non-municipal committees and boards. Nothing I can recall from Phenom. Is there anything from the Conservation Authority to report?
Yes, we do have a recommendation from Brian regarding the Bill 229 to protect and support the Recover from COVID-19 Act, a Schedule 6 Conservation Authority Act. Since then, we did receive a media release this morning, and so when it does come to this point, I'll give you a little rundown on the media release. So that's coming up later on in your agenda.
Okay, thank you. And then there was a conference call meeting. Well, it was a Zoom meeting, I shouldn't call it a conference call, of the Castleholme Board related to the construction project that I participated in last Friday. It was a rundown of the fact that the tender is out for the construction of the new Castleholme, and that simultaneously financing conversations are happening. They've engaged some consultants to walk them through this process because it's at the minimum a $65 million project, and they're hoping that it stays well with under 90 million. That's the range that it could fall within. And some of the municipalities had concerns about the fact of how it was going to be financed. It was generally understood some time ago that Infrastructure Ontario was going to provide the funding en masse for it. Each municipality would repay their particular mortgage share of that. Some of the 4-member municipalities that we used to participate with in MBDC a couple of them want to pay the sum total up front and not have a 25-year or 30-year mortgage, and that's their choice. So that conversation led that way. The city of North Bay had quite a bit of dialogue about the fact that what's causing some concern is the province has committed quite a sum of money, and I want to say $40 million off the top of my head to this, but what they're not doing is providing that as cash immediately up front. They're expecting, because this is a municipally owned retirement home, that Castle Home will borrow the full amount of the money. And just like us as municipalities, we each pay our mortgage share to pay it off over 30 years. The province wants to do the same and pay their mortgage over 30 years as well on an annual basis. But that requires the board of Castle Home to go out and borrow not only the municipal share, but also the provincial share as one large block of money. So there was a bit of confusion, it would seem, among some of the member participants from North Bay related to that, because as you know, they're half of that share of ownership. So $39 million is the figure that the city of North Bay needs to put in. But if they're putting also in the provincial or borrowing on behalf of the province, the provincial share, it's probably $55 million that they have to have on their books for about 30 years. So that's a concern to them. So that's what the meeting was about. There was a lot of direction given for clarity about how this money was going to be borrowed. But their consultants that they have there and have indicated that while there's been a frustration in getting the home constructed with the interest rate collapse due to COVID-19, it's probably going to save in the bigger picture $100,000 a year in interest just by the fact that the project's about 1.5 years late in starting. So interest rates have fallen even at Infrastructure Ontario enough to save the project $100,000 a year at this point, if they can get things locked in the foreseeable future. So enough on that. No notices of motion, but we do have a bylaw this evening. Introduction, consideration of bylaws, a first, second, and third reading of bylaw 2020-20, and that's to permit the operation of off-road vehicles on any highway within the municipality that is under the jurisdiction of the municipality. You may recall that we were one of the initial municipalities to introduce ATVs to our road system legally by bylaw. And what this amendment seeks to do, as we know now, ATVs have changed so much since our bylaw was first adopted that side-by-sides and six-wheelers and fat bikes and other types of things are now more common than they ever were. And this bylaw amendment, along with provincial legislation that changed quite some time ago, updates our bylaw to allow those types of vehicles to comply with our bylaw. Has everybody seen the bylaw? It was in their package, I trust. Yes, CAO Johnston.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I gave everyone a short note about this. And as I mentioned, most of the municipalities in our district have passed a similar bylaw. And I also just want to mention that we sent this, part of the reason why we were delayed in getting all this material to you, as you mentioned in a memo of council, is that we wanted to get a lot of things reviewed and so on before we brought to council. So this bylaw was sent to our municipal solicitor, Ed Delboom, and he got back to us in record time. and it meets provincial legislation, and it's in order to for council to pass.
Okay. Yes, there's a question.
Yeah, I looked at the bylaw in Bancroft, their 2015 one. They amended it. They added things. They're a little more comprehensive. They have the speed limits and that. Can we add that on there? Ours doesn't.
I think the memo circulated by the CAO said that we would update the bylaw in its entirety at a point in the future.
Yeah, but yeah,
But
because they have a good one there. I like theirs because they have the speed limits. Otherwise, you have to look elsewhere what the speed limits are. They have it on there. To me, that would make sense. Like the off-road vehicle should not be driven at a rate of speed greater than, they have it there. 20 kilometers per hour in a 50 kilometer per hour zone, or 50 kilometers per hour where it's higher than 50 kilometers per hour. I like that inclusion in that. So we don't have to look elsewhere to find out what are the speed limits.
okay, I didn't reference the Bancroft one at all.
Yeah, if you look at the 2015, they changed it. They added the stuff that you wanted to add there, but it'd be good to add that in ours too. Like mimic theirs.
I have two other hands up.
How do
Councillor
they-
Lagasse first, I guess.
Eh?
Thank you, Chair. My comment is, yes, the Bancroft one does sound like for that area. We're more rural and not so much in a heavily populated area. So I agree with, I'm all right with this bylaw.
I'll come back to you. There was the CAO next, and then Councillor Viancore, and then we're going back to Councillor Foyce.
Well, Your Worship, I would just say this, that if we want to look into the suggestion that Councillor Foisey has made, we'd be happy to do that. But my recommendation would be that we've been under considerable pressure to have this bylaw passed. And what I would recommend we do is not defer it tonight, but we can, if we look into the Bancroft bylaw, recognizing that we're not going to have another meeting of council, our next regular meeting will be the 12th of January. So we wouldn't be able to do anything with this bylaw until then. I would recommend that we pass this bylaw tonight, and if we bring a report to council based on Councillor Foisey's suggestion, and you want to amend our bylaw, we can do that on the 12th of January.
Okay, Councillor Viancore was next.
Yeah, just wondering how, if the bylaw, I mean, do we have to spend so much money on, I agree with some of the, I haven't seen the Bancroft bylaw, but how we would enforce speed limits that are posted on our highways already to the bikes. I mean, will we have to put posting more signs for four-wheelers or
That'd be a good idea.
would, yeah, I mean, that would be incurring our cost too, but something to look at though. I just don't, yeah, I definitely need more to look at it, more, bit more research, but I agree that we could pass this bylaw. That's it.
Okay, back to Councillor Foisey then for last comments on it.
In conjunction with that, can we do something like we have to protect the pedestrians also because they're all over the roads. The sidewalks are, might as well not mention them, but yeah, we have to do something to protect the pedestrians. We need sidewalks. If we're going to have all kinds of vehicles and stuff, we need better sidewalks. That's a big expense, but like a few times I'd have to go around like a baby carriage on the road. Well, makes you think. And now you're well, they're already there. Those vehicles that we're talking about, they're already there, legally or illegally, doesn't matter. But we have to do something for the pedestrians also. Like we're encouraging people to walk, but they have to walk on the road. I had an encounter with a pedestrian on Development Road. I was riding on the shoulder. I don't know if you're allowed to ride on the shoulder or not in my ATV. And she was coming on the shoulder on the left side. I was on the right side, so we're face to face. And she was going out in the road to let me go by. But I went around her telling her, no, you have the right of way. The pedestrian has the right of way. That's a problem. People have to be more informed, like pedestrians have the right of way and all that, but the pedestrian has to be protected also. I'm not opposed to this, but we need better sidewalks. Should I be riding on the shoulder? Should I be riding on the road with my off-road vehicle, or has to be specified?
Okay, so I've heard that there's general support for tabling this tonight with consideration given about speed limit conversation in January. Is that, would there be a mover for this bylaw tonight? Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Vinecourt. I'll read the motion then. Whereas council deems it expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to permit the operation of off-road vehicles on any highway within the municipality that is under the jurisdiction of the municipality be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2020-20, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book, and that this bylaw be placed on the municipal website for public information purposes. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Disbursements. We have our disbursements in our package. Before I read the motion, I'll open the floor to questions on this package of disbursements. Anybody have any questions on them? Yes, Councillor Lagasse.
Thank you, Chair. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I do have some questions for Public Works. Yeah, she knew it was coming. The repair to the garage door. Is this from the last time it was damaged, or is this a new damage?
No, there's a new heating system that's going to be installed in the township garage that is going to promote energy efficiency, because every time you open the big doors,
Okay.
all winter. So anyways, we had to all the doors serviced. So
I
that we-
remember.
all the rubbers, yes.
I remember that conversation. My next question is, again, Public Works, page 3 of 5. And the invoices for Busted Knuckles. Is this all for the backhoe and the grader and that? And I noticed there's tires from Cal Tire for the backhoe also. Did we ever get an amount of how much we spent on the backhoe and the grader for this year?
Yeah,
Seems
I
like
have all
there's
those.
a lot of tires going out.
Those are tire repairs. So unfortunately, and I don't want to blame COVID-19, but the landfill had consumed massive amounts of garbage. And every time there's nails, roofing nails are actually one of our largest culprits in our tires with backhoe. And I am willing to prepare that report that you requested at our last council meeting for the next Public Works Committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions related to the disbursements? Yes, Councillor Vancor.
Just for the not the backhoe, but the grader again. So none of the tires and that are for that. I guess the grader that we rent. No, so okay. Getting back to the landfill. Just a quick thing over. I had a couple of comments on the where we put the recycling, where that boards are, if they could be repaired. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't have to. Okay. Besides that,
I think he said he didn't have any more questions.
oh, I must have muted. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, last call for questions, and then I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the disbursements. Would there be a mover for the disbursements? Moved by Councillor Legacy. Seconded by Councillor Foisey. That the following disbursements be approved as prepared. APO 5395, comprising all the departments, with a subtotal of $1,512,120.07, and payroll batch 1112 through to 1117 in the amount of $92,639.42, resulting in a total disbursement of $1,846,602.41. Last call for questions on them. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Correspondence and information. Memo regarding Christmas hours and cancellation of the December 22nd council meeting. I trust that you've seen the motion. It says that the Christmas hours for the municipal office be accepted as submitted and posted on the website and municipal entrance doors. I'd take a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Legacy. Seconded by Councillor Vancor. All in favor? Carried.
Worship,
Yes,
I do have a motion that is not in your package regarding the reserve fund policy that we need to pass for tonight.
okay. I don't believe I have it before me. Would you read that motion and then I'll call for a mover and a seconder?
In accordance with the Bondfield Reserve Fund Policy Bylaw 2020-02, February 11th, 2020, and as approved by the municipal auditor, council authorizes the immediate transfer of $370,808 from a general reserve account to the Efficiencies Reserve Fund.
So the money just moves from the regular bank account into a reserve fund. Yes, the CAO has comment on that.
Well, your worship, it's actually in a general reserve fund. It's already in the reserves, but when Brian Rogers made his presentation to council in December of 2019 with his new reserve fund policy, council accepted that, but it wasn't until February of 2020 that we actually passed a resolution and a bylaw to do that. Before the end of the year. So when I met with BDO and Brian Rogers with Wispy last week, we agreed that that needs to be done tonight, so that you're right. It's just a matter of taking the money from a general reserve fund and putting it into the efficiency reserve fund that Dean alluded to tonight.
Okay. Would there be a mover for that motion? Moved by Councillor Lagasse. Seconded by Councillor Vinecore. You've heard the motion. The clerk can read it again if you so desire. Otherwise, I'll call the vote on it. All in favor? Carried. Item 2, memo from the Public Works Manager, Blue Box transition to producer responsibility recycling. Yes, Councillor Lagasse.
I'm sorry, I just want to take this time regarding the last motion to have Christmas holidays for our staff. And I wanted to take this time to thank staff and management and all of Public Works for everything that they've done for the community throughout the whole year. And I've heard so much good of how you worked through COVID, and I just wanted to say that you deserve a well-break vacation and Merry Christmas to you all. And that's my message.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure we all share that that sentiment. Public Works Manager Blue Box transition memo. Basically, that's an information piece. Oh, we have recording secretary is flagging me now. Yes.
Sorry, you missed the motion regarding canceling the regular council meeting of December 22nd. We have a motion to cancel that meeting.
Okay, I thought that was included in the other one, but apparently not. So, okay, so I take a mover and a seconder to cancel the December 22nd council meeting. Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Vinecore. That the December 22nd meeting of council be canceled. All in favor? Carried. Okay, the Blue Box transition is basically just an information piece, as I take it, or is there a decision to be made there tonight? Okay, could you elaborate on that, Manager Carr?
As you could see with some news release, some pre-press releases, everybody's been working very hard on to getting a circular economy with the recycling. Currently, municipalities are given the burden of paying for all the recycling that happens within our community. So the province has made a system. So it'll be like when you buy a computer, you pay an environmental fee. Another fee is going to be included, unfortunately, to the consumer, but it'll be anytime something is packaged in a cardboard box, anything is packaged in paper, the people that use that will have to pay a fee. And that fee goes into a pot of money, and that'll be dispersed to municipalities so that they can pay for the recycling that's produced by the producers. So then it's no longer our burden to share. As this transitions, it begins in 2023. We have to pick a date where we would like to transition, as the province is trying to transition 1/3 at a time. So 2023, 2024, and 2025. It doesn't mean we're guaranteed that date, but it gives the province an idea as to how they can move forward with their transition. For ourselves, we just had to look at our contract with Miller Waste. So our contract ends with Miller Waste this year. However, in pre-conversation and their understanding, because they have a lot of municipalities here in the north they take care of, they're willing to go to a 1-year contract or a 2-year contract, so that we can get into that transitional period. So there is a motion tonight to have that transition. No? Yeah. Okay, we can do it in January.
There doesn't appear to be any motion prepared. It said, once the regulation is finalized, another report will be filed to council regarding the transition date. So none
Okay.
of us were expecting to decide tonight on,
That's okay. It was very lengthy as well, so.
okay, so January is sufficient then for to pick a date?
Sure.
Okay, good. So it's information for this evening then? Excuse me. Item 3, the 8th Military Service Recognition Book advertising. I trust you may or may not have seen the motion. I'll read the motion and then we'll see if it achieves a mover and a seconder. Whereas the Royal Canadian Legion Ontario Command will be printing their 8th Military Service Recognition Book scheduled for release by Remembrance Day 2021. Be it hereby resolved that the Corporation of the Township of Bonfield supports this remembrance project, for which the proceeds raised are used to support veterans transition programs to help modern day veterans that suffer from PTSD and other challenges by sponsoring an advertisement business card size for a cost of $290. I believe we've already done so. This is kind of a retroactive move on our part. Would there be a mover for that expenditure? Yes, Councillor Foisey. And seconded by Councillor Vinecourt. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. I take it, recording secretary, that you're doing a better job than me keeping track of who moved and seconded all these things. Okay, very good, because I've kind of lost track here. Moving then to item 4, the Conservation Authority. As Councillor Lagashi mentioned earlier, there's some pushback from our local Conservation Authority related to Bill 229. And that's kind of a bill related to the scope of authority related to conservation authorities. And their correspondence is in our package. The motion, I'll read it first, and that way we can see if it achieves a mover and a seconder. That the Corporation of the Township of Bonfield supports North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority's resolution passed at its meeting of November 25th, 2020, requesting the removal of Schedule 6 from Bill 229 to allow for provincial, municipal, and conservation authority consultations on the implications of changes to the Conservation Authorities Act, and that a copy of this resolution be circulated to Premier Ford, Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, Vic Fedeli, Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, Jeff Urich, Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, John Yakubuski, and Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Steve Clark, and Minister of Finance, Rod Phillips. Would there be a mover for that motion? Moved by Councillor Lagasse. Seconded by Councillor Vinecourt. Any questions on this one? All in favor? Carried. Item 5, a memo from the CAO regarding our community wellness plan blueprint. As you know, quite some time ago, the province imposed the requirement that every community had to create a community safety and well-being plan. And that came to my attention long ago at the Police Services Board level, where the Police Services Board was asked about their contribution to the safety and well-being plan by the detachment commander of the OPP and how we were moving along with it. As I say, that was easily 2 years ago. And as the report, or I'll let the CAO speak to it himself, but as described, there was a lot of conversation taking place amongst municipalities about the complexity of these plans and the fact that in this district with shared services of health unit, DSAB, ambulance, police, you name it, we share our services with our neighboring municipalities. Imposing a community safety and well-being plan per municipality couldn't help but have a lot of duplicated information in it because we share the service providers. So I was approached at Roma in January of this year by Councillor Vraybosch of North Bay about whether we would be willing to collaborate on a lot of the stuff that was related across the district. And that led to the city of North Bay, as described by the CAO, taking the lead and offering to formulate a lot of that stuff in conjunction with conversations that we should have had along the way. Somewhere along the way, even prior to COVID, that never occurred, as we all kind of were waiting to hear, what do you want to hear from me? And that never happened. So here we are now, and the deadline for submission of these things has been pushed back due to COVID. But I'll let the CAO elaborate a little bit more on the fact that we've wanted to do a collaborative approach from the outset, but found ourselves in the position now of pretty much having to work towards it ourselves to get this project done.
Well, Your Worship, thank you. As I said in my report, you mentioned that this has been on the books for a couple of years at least. And as you mentioned, we were it's a very, very complicated process to put this together, as you can tell by the blueprint that I provided to you. And we were approached by the city of North Bay to join them with a number of other municipalities in Nipissing, which seemed like a good idea at the time because they had the technical staff and the research staff that we didn't. And some of the other municipalities in our area were going to join in a collaborative effort where we would put together a plan with the city of North Bay that covered all the common stakeholders, and then develop our own individual plans as part of the part of the plan that related specifically to each municipality. That just never happened for whatever reason. I don't want to blame the city of North Bay, but Doug and I made a number of approaches to Ian Kilgore and to his office, and it just didn't happen. So a few months ago, Staff Sergeant McMullen approached Doug and I, excuse me, and suggested that he had a consultant that he'd had a number of projects with, and other municipalities had been engaging him to do a community wellness plan. So Doug and I took the contact information that Sergeant McMullen gave us, contacted, his name is Gary Fay. He sent us his CV. We had a couple of meetings with him. We asked him to do a draft of the blueprint for us, which he did. And that's what you were provided with on Friday. Doug and I were very impressed by him, as was Staff Sergeant McMullen. He didn't, as we might have, we would not have been surprised had we received a cookie cutter, cut and paste kind of plan. He knew a lot about Bonfil. He does his research. Bottom line is that we would like to continue with Gary. We have money in our budget to do that. I gave you a copy of his very extensive CV. He would like to participate with us in producing this plan. We would have to, a lot of the work we do would have to be ourselves. There's a number of things we have to do, but what we need to do this evening, the only thing we need to do this evening is pass the resolution that was in your, down at the bottom of the screen, simply making a commitment to community wellness and safety. That's a requirement by the province. So this is not something that Gary has drafted or we did. This is a requirement by the province. To start the process formally, we need to pass this resolution. And then what I'm suggesting is that we take the time between now and January the 12th for everybody to go through the, as I said, that's not the plan. That's the blueprint to develop the plan. So if you take the time between now and January the 12th to go through the blueprint that we provided to you, make some notes, ask some questions of Doug or I, which we'll get back to you with before the 12th of January. And then there are some things that we need to do in January. Principally, we need to appoint some committees. That's the next step. So that's where we're at. That I'd like you to take the time. We weren't intending to do that tonight. It's a large document. Take the time between now and the 12th of January to go through the blueprint, make some notes, ask some questions, and then we'll bring it up formally for discussion on the 12th of January.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read the motion as prepared first, and then if it receives tabling, if there's any questions after, we could entertain them. So whereas the Township of Bonfield unanimously resolved in 2020 to treat safety and well-being for all citizens and visitors to Bonfield as a priority, and whereas our shared commitment anchors all municipal safety and well-being policies, initiatives, and activities, and helps guide future municipal planning. And whereas our shared commitment is designed to stimulate higher levels of civic engagement and pride in the creation of a more positive and cohesive community that is thriving and growing. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Bonfield does hereby renew for the citizens of the Township of Bonfield this council's highest commitment to safety and well-being for all who choose to live, work, visit, or play in Bonfield, and that the Township of Bonfield does hereby expect all agencies, organizations, businesses, and residents of Bonfield to fully engage in and support the enterprise of developing and sustaining safety and well-being for all to the fullest extent of their capabilities to do so. Would there be a mover for that motion? Moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Lagasse. Any questions on the statement of the motion or the package you received thus far? Yes, Councillor Lagasse.
Yes, I thought this report was well done, and a lot of planning and a lot of work towards it. And I was wondering if it could go along with what Dean DeCare had suggested, that we spend our money in improvements such as links on the web to help people, and maybe that could be some where we could use some of that money that he suggested that we use in piggyback with this well-being report. Just a suggestion, but I'm in favor of this.
That's something that will need to be raised at the committee level when the committee's established. But yes, CAO.
Well, I know, Your Worship, I think that's a great idea, Councillor Lagasse. Those are the kinds of things that we would want to engage the community and council in to develop those kinds of ideas. So I don't know whether you were meaning to volunteer your name to serve on one of these committees, but it's a great idea. That's the kind of thing that we want to talk to the community about, developing those kinds of ideas. Yes, of course.
Okay. If there's no further questions, all in favor? Carried.
Thank you for that.
Item 6, a memo from the CAO regarding the procedural bylaw revision to electronic attendance. As you know, our procedural bylaw was amended to allow us to have this form of a meeting that we're hosting tonight. But then the province, after seeing how well it was adopted, provincially expanded the capability in the Municipal Act to continue this even after a pandemic or any other type of emergency. And there's some choices in there about in the Municipal Act suggestion about whether quorum is achieved electronically or not. But there is a motion. No, there is no motion prepared for that tonight. Yes, CAO.
Your worship, in my memo, we thought it might be better to provide that amendment to council to look at and ask any questions. It was the amendment was submitted to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and they've approved it. It meets the legislation, and they had no comment about changes. So rather than have a bylaw and a motion tonight, if there are no disagreements or no suggested changes, what we're proposing to do is on January the 12th, this would be the fourth amendment to our procedural bylaw. So what I'd like to do is, I don't believe in multiple amendments on any bylaw. So what we're proposing to do is on January the 12th, if you agree with this amendment, we'll bring in a bylaw to completely replace our procedural bylaw and include all the amendments so that we have all the provisions in the current procedural bylaw, but wrap it back up into one new bylaw, and we will include this amendment on January the 12th.
Okay, so you're looking for feedback only this evening about
Yes,
any of those provisions in there of whether they're acceptable or not?
that's correct.
Okay. Councillor Foisey.
So we'll get a list of all the amendments?
Pardon?
You'll provide us a list of all the amendments?
Yes, sir. The amendments I'm talking about, Councillor, are ones that have already been passed by council. I'm suggesting that we incorporate them all into a new bylaw so that it's not bylaws such and such amended by this bylaw, amended by this bylaw, amended by this bylaw. We just take all the current amendments to date, including this one, and put them into one comprehensive bylaw.
So you'll have a bylaw with scratches and
Yeah,
additions?
we can do that.
Yeah.
Show you what we're not suggesting taking things out, we're adding things. But the bylaw that we would present to you on the 12th of January would show
Okay.
you what amendments have been added since 2015 or 2005 and any new amendments. So that would all be in the new bylaw that we present you on the 12th of January.
Okay. Councillor Vinepour has a
agree.
question.
No, I just had a comment. I agree with that. Instead of having amendments and amendments.
Yeah.
Makes
Okay,
sense.
thank you.
Okay, so we'll leave this tonight. We're going to see it on the 12th of January, or prior to the 12th of January with highlighted amendments
Yes.
to the new proposed procedural bylaw.
Right. If I might, Your Worship, just a final comment on this is a good segue. I've been texting with the recording clerk back and forth here. And I think it'd be a good opportunity to, talking about electronic meetings and electronic attendance, to tell you, and I'm very pleased to tell you this, that right at the moment, we have 25 people currently watching this council meeting on YouTube, which is great. One of the things coming out of the pandemic that might be a benefit is that, I've always felt that we needed to do everything we could to encourage our residents to attend our council meetings. And so once we get out of the emergency, this is another opportunity that we can provide the opportunity for people to attend our council meetings without having to leave their home. A lot of the work that we had to do to correct our live streaming onto YouTube was done by our recording clerk tonight. I want to thank her again publicly for all the great work she did that. So I'm so pleased that we have that many people watching us tonight. Andre, do we know, are there any people also access on the Bell platform?
We did have a couple on the teleconference, but I cannot tell how many.
Yeah, okay. But in any event, there's 25 or there was half an hour ago. So that's good. If maybe Your Worship, you might welcome those people to our council meeting and encourage them to attend future council meetings. I think that's great. That people took that opportunity and are able to watch democracy in action.
Well, thank you for shaming me on that, because at the outset of our meeting a month ago, I welcomed our teleconference people, and in the complications of having 3 meetings overlapping each other in the time frame, I forgot to do so this evening. But of course, at any time, any oversight or visitors to our council meeting is always more than welcome.
Well, and your worship, that's not an oversight on your part. That's my fault. I didn't mention anything at the beginning because I wasn't clear. We've had some problems in the past with the YouTube live streaming, and I unsuccessfully a number of times was unable to fix it. Andre spent part of her weekend last weekend with her husband to try and fix this problem. So we didn't know until after we started the meeting whether or not it worked. It did. And I asked Andre whether there was anybody on, and she told me that there was 25. So that's not on you, sir. That's on me.
No, what's on me is I forgot to welcome our viewers that I can't tell if they're there or not, but they may well be there, and now I've heard they are there. All right, so moving then, we've heard generally that the amendment to the procedural bylaw process is acceptable, and we'll look forward to that in the new year. Moving away from it then, we're going to item 7, a junior firefighter recommendation from the fire chief. I'll pre-read the motion and see if it achieves a mover and a seconder. And it says, whereas Fire Chief Gilles Lebel has recommended to council that the application submitted by Grant Carr be accepted as a junior firefighter for the Township of Bonfield's Volunteer Fire Department, be it hereby resolved that council approves of this recommendation. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Lagacé, and seconded by Councillor Viancourt. Any questions at all? All in favor? Carried. Information. Our 2021 OPP annual letter and billing statement is received, and a bit of incremental good news there in that it would appear our billing is going down $5,000 over last year. So that's something nice to see. There was all the reservation about the fact that billing municipally was going to move, and it did move, to an incident-based form of billing. And in our particular case, because of good numbers, our policing costs have gone down by $5,000 for the year ahead. There's always a year-end reconciliation that happens, and if behaviors change, our number, of course, could be reconciled higher, but so far it's working in our favor, the new process. Item 2, a memo from the CAO related to the ATV bylaw. Well, we've dealt with the bylaw this evening earlier in the agenda, but we heard some comments about speed limits and so on that we're going to visit in January as well. So I don't know if there's any more on that subject tonight. Same with item 3. The Off-Road Vehicle Act update was captured in our bylaw update earlier in the evening. Item 4, the impact 2021 values in COVID-19. There's some description in there of the fact that COVID-19 has impacted their reassessment processes, and that they're sticking to some of the current numbers that they have, as opposed to more fulsome review of assessments, is what I took from it. And item 5, a report from the health unit to report animal bites and scratches, and that's a requirement primarily related to rabies in the district, and not the fact that we have great numbers of rabies incidents, but there has been some, and it's their requirement that animal bites and scratches be reported to the health unit where incidents like that occur.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just back on that last impact, something I think I wanted to mention to council, and it might be of interest to some of our audience that's listening in. One of the other interesting items in that announcement from MPAC is, and this was in the budget announcement by the government a month or so ago, is that they're going to introduce legislation that will allow municipalities to provide tax relief, property tax relief to small businesses. And as you might recall, council, this was an item that a year or so ago, which seems like decades ago, that has come up to council, where we looked into the possibility of being able to provide a process to provide property tax relief to businesses. And I had looked into a number of issues, another number of options to do that, none of which were feasible. So I'm pleased that the government has now recognized that issue, and legislation will be introduced sometime early in 2021, and that municipalities will then be at least able to consider providing property tax relief on qualification to small business. So that was good news, and that was part of that letter from MPAC.
Okay, thank you. It would seem that we've moved along in our meeting to the point that we're at confirmatory bylaw. I'll call for a mover for the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Lagasse, and seconded by Councillor Vinecourt. Whereas council deems it expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be hereby resolved that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council from November 10th, 2020 to December 8th, 2020 be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2020-21, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. All in favor? Carried. We've made it through another electronic meeting, so I would take a motion. Oh, do I have a question first? Yes, okay, Councillor Lagasse.
Thank you, Chair. I do have, I think the bylaw, the reading of the bylaw number 2020-20, we all need to go in and sign, Andre. When's the best time to, do we need to sign the bylaw, each councillor?
No, it was the Committee of Adjustment. You're right, there is something to sign, but it's not a bylaw.
It's not the bylaw, it's the Committee of Adjustment, that one. Okay, so what day is best before we adjourn?
I can put it in your mailbox as of tomorrow morning and have everybody stop in and sign it. I'm not sure if Randy, you're coming in overnight to sign everything else. I'll leave it there on the table, and tomorrow morning I will put it in the boxes for the rest of the council members.
Okay. And Councillor Vinecourt, yes?
I just had another couple of comments. One, I just want to thank the staff for all the hard work they've done this year, and with these trying circumstances. A couple more things I just want to say. Moving on with the RV bylaw, I don't know if I should bring that up now or next meeting. I had a few people call me with some issues, and I think we'd have to definitely have some discussion on it in the new year. So I don't know if we put it on the first meeting or within the next month or so. So if that's all I got to say about that for now.
Okay, the CAO is.
Well, first of all, Councillor Vinecourt, you're and Councillor Lagasse and the rest of council, I appreciate your words of support for what we've been all trying to do. It's a collective effort, all of us here. And on the RV, Councillor, if you'd like to send me an email or give me a call sometime with those issues, then I'll make sure that those are reviewed before we submit something in January for council to consider.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions this evening before I call for a motion to adjourn? Okay. I take a mover that this meeting be adjourned. Moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Vinecore, that this meeting be adjourned at 8:26 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank
Merry
you, Council.
Christmas to
Thank you,
everybody.
Ann. Thank you, Andre.